Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Rasulullah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very first launching dialogue on Kashmir at the Middle East Institute. A little bit of brief history of Kashmir. As you all know, this has been a struggle for freedom for the last over 100 years. 1947 happens, partition takes place between India and Pakistan. The rule of thumb was the Hindu majority will go to India and the Muslim majority will go to Pakistan. Kashmir, being a Muslim majority but princely run state, was given an option whether to stay independent or join Pakistan. At that moment in time, till today, we have seen the movement of freedom have intensified. There have been some highs and low points for Kashmir, but we have not seen the resolve to the issue of Kashmir. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, India revoked its Article 370 and 35A by revoking the autonomous status, the semi-autonomous status that Kashmir has that was given under the Constitution of India was taken away. For the last 2 years, tomorrow marks the 2 consecutive years of oppression, 2 consecutive years of 1 million boots on the ground, 10 million people caged, human rights violation, suppression, oppression of human rights, women are being raped, and it is being used as a weapon of war. So Kashmiri diaspora around the world is raising their voices. They're trying to apprise the world what's going on. But the voices of indigenous people is not being heard. So that's why we have launched this dialogue today at the Middle East Institute while we are launching our TV channel for the people of Kashmir so that we can become the voice for the voiceless people of the region. So we are very grateful to the head of Middle East Institution right here in Washington, Dr. Marvin Weinbaum, who has allowed us to use his platform to bring the voices to the world of people who are voiceless. So we will begin this dialogue by inviting our ambassador, Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, who is joining us from Canada. He is the former ambassador who will share his brief remarks before we move on to the next speaker. So, Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kazi. I think this is one of those topics which you have chosen and the kind of awareness which you are thinking to provide to the people and the world at large. This is a greatest service to the humanity, I would say. We are talking about a region which is bleeding. We are talking about the region, the people of that region are suffering. We are talking about the region which has maximum violation of the international law. We are talking about the region that is Kashmir, which has maximum human right violation. It's not me I'm saying. It's basically the report published by the Human Rights Commissioner in his report of 2018 and 2019. 43 pages report, the last one. It contains all what you said in your intro and in your introduction, whatever you have said, and much more. And those 43 pages, that is a neutral body, that's an international body, and that's formed under the international law. That speaks volume about it. It speaks about the rape, it speaks about the extrajudicial killing, it speaks about the forced disappearance, it speaks about internet shutdown, which is maximum in the world. It speaks about the human right violation in terms of assembly, freedom of speech, in terms of freedom of movement, in terms of freedom of assembly, and in terms of losing life and profusely bleeding. There are so many commentators who have already lamented Kashmir region as the region of open prison, and the Kashmir region where the enactment by the Indian authorities have been made against the international laws, and I'll come in a while after a while. Um, and how long the world can afford to this situation where the nuclear volcano, if not the flashpoint, is already been mentioned by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, by so many other entities around the world, and how long the international laws continues to be violated, how long the human miseries would continue to take place, and how long we can tolerate the proxies and hybrid war because of the situation and because of this conflict, the longest outstanding conflict of the world. How long can we pollute the international politics? How long can we infect the international organization like FATF, like IMF, and like human rights, like the Security Council, and so many other international platforms, the lobbying, the kind of pressure groups, the kind of extra efforts which is being made from both sides, and how long we'll see people in both countries, India and Pakistan, suffering and going below the poverty line. How long are we going to wait for the financial unsustainability of these countries? And then again, it goes down to the miseries of the people around. And how long can Pakistan be dragged into the containment of China and face the music? So all these indicators I've given it purposely. And so long as we do not, the world as a whole, do not really assert themselves through the multilateral diplomacy and, if not pressure, to implement the international law, the human right, the Security Council resolution, and the Security Council resolution 47 is very clear, and that is the only solution. If not, then the world community can join their heads and hand together and find some other solution. You were talking in your interview about about the violation of human rights in the region, the Kashmir region. Well, the Article 49 of the Geneva Convention is so clear about it, and that is where the disputed territory cannot be altered. And this introduction of or change in the constitution unilaterally by Indian authority without having any regard to the assembly. Assembly was already dissolved. The Kashmir Assembly, Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. So these are those violations which the world can ill afford to really tolerate, and we have tolerated it for a very long duration of time. I think we do not have much cushion to tolerate, and we have to find some. If nothing else, we should just keep in our mind or have it in front of us the two commission reports. One was in 2018, and the other one was 2019. If nothing else, we should go by the recommendation of the Human Rights Commissioner, and there where it says, if nothing else, at least they should be able to have formed the commission of inquiry, and that commission of inquiry should be able to conduct its inquiry on both sides of the Kashmir, Pakistan and India, both sides. OIC is making its recommendation that the Human Rights Commissioner report is appropriate, and it should be also read in conjunction with the UN Secretary General's report, which was submitted to the Security Council some time back. And Amnesty International also welcomes this report of the Human Rights Commissioner. Why I'm emphasizing on the report of the Human Rights Commissioner and Human Rights Commission? Because that contains everything, and that is acceptable by the international entities. If that is not done, and if we continue to violate the articles which I just mentioned, and also article of the International Law Commission draft code, crime against the peace and security of mankind, and that if we keep doing it, that is the Article 20 of this, and if we keep doing it, it tantamounts to leading the concerned parties and the concerned perpetrators of these international laws, crime of the international laws, and it takes them to the statutes of the Article 8.2 of the International Criminal Court. So all these things, what we need to do, as I said, that a multilateral diplomacy and, if not pressure by the world community, is definitely needed if this problem, the most outstanding problem, the most serious problem, which had almost brought the brink. And reportedly, let me quote, I should not overemphasize the flashpoint which I just mentioned and which has been mentioned by the Prime Minister of Pakistan and so many other the leadership from both sides. Even during the Vajpayee time, the Prime Minister Vajpayee time, once the Kargil had taken place, it is reported that Prime Minister Vajpayee had conveyed to the President of the United States of that time, Mr. Clinton, that they are all ready and they are absolutely prepared to use the nukes. So, in such a dangerous situation, and do we understand what does it imply if by any chance, although of course the entire world community would have all the measures to stop it, but in case human beings are human beings, the decisions are made by the human beings, both sides of the leadership. So therefore, if that happens, the disastrous situation, I have the scientific data what could happen in case if there is any flashpoint anywhere in the world. So where do we stand? I think I've taken about 7-8 minutes now, but if you want, I can continue with some more points. This is such a, yeah. Are you saying something?
Go ahead. We just make the conclusive remarks, and then we will move on to the next speaker.
Okay, right. Just give me about 2 more minutes and I'll be. So this is really heartbreaking. The United Nations report contains the school, hospitals used for the military purposes in the Jammu and Kashmir, particularly Jammu, and also the use of pellet guns. 4,000 people have been injured, blinded. In the world, the maximum pellets ever used against human being is 1.3 millions. I'm talking about the reports, which is there of the United Nations report, not anybody's else's report. 1.3 million pellets used on the human beings. Imagine the disastrous effect. And the schools, UN has already verified the way schools are being used. And above all, there are the draconian laws which has been implemented in these regions. Imagine the European Union also has mentioned about Indian Chronicles, and I've mentioned about the hybrid war and as an indicator. So if this continues, where does it lead us? And this definitely lead us to more disaster, more pressure groups, more lobbying, more negative politics, international politics, and then the results of that kind is going to be disastrous. I can keep going on about giving the reference of Simla, and in nutshell, whether it's Article 33 of the United Nations Charter, Article 36 of the United Nations Charter, or Simla Conference, or all the Security Council resolutions, we have not been able to either implement it, or we have not been able to structure it in a way that both the countries they agree to those recommendations. And if they don't, then United Nations Charter, United Nations Charter, Chapter 6 or 7 has to be implemented. If that doesn't implement it, the world should be prepared for the disastrous effect of the consequences of any conflict if it flares up. The heat is generating. The heat is generating every passing month, every passing year, and if it keeps, then it's going to flash, and
Thank
that
you.
flash would engulf the entire world. It's not going to stay in that region,
Thank you,
obviously.
Pastor. Thank you very much for your kind remarks and apprising us to the situation that's happening on the ground. We'll keep you in the background. You can still stay tuned to our listen to our rest of the speaker as well. Thank you very much. Now I would like to request. Mr. Rais Khan, who is a political activist and right activist who would be speaking for the brief moment. I would request all the speakers to cognizant of the time that we are in. So over to Mr. Rais Khan.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time here. Today we are here for Kashmir. And when we say about Kashmir, I mean, it's really heartbreaking because since my childhood, I hear the word Kashmir, Kashmir, Kashmir. Unfortunately, India goes for a tut ang, and Pakistan goes for Kashmir for Pakistan. So the question is, what